Hello everyone, and welcome to my Sister Wives For You channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Kody Brown has always been a man caught between the worlds he built and the worlds he destroyed, but nothing captures that contradiction more than his recent behavior toward Christine Brown and her children, a situation that has exploded into one of the most shocking and emotionally tangled scandals the Sister Wives universe has seen in years, with insiders whispering that Kody desperately wants to forget Christine ever existed while simultaneously ranting nonstop about her kids, as if the mere mention of their names ignites a fire he can't put out. A bizarre contradiction that exposes exactly how deep the wounds still run and how unwilling he is to take accountability for the mess he created over decades of selective affection, polygamous chaos, and emotionally imbalanced parenting that left each of the Brown kids wrestling with their own versions of abandonment, frustration, and disillusionment as the family collapsed under the weight of favoritism and resentment. And despite Kody's attempt to act like Christine is nothing more than a chapter from a dusty old book he's finished reading, he continues bringing her up in private discussions, off-camera tirades, and heated conversations with Robin, all while insisting he's moved on, rebuilt his life, and simply wants peace. But that facade shatters every time he launches into a rant about Christine's children, accusing them of disrespect, betrayal, and spreading lies about him when, in reality, these are the same kids who watched their mother cry in silence for years as she begged for the bare minimum of love, empathy, and attention from a husband who increasingly prioritized prestige, control, and emotional loyalty over actual connection, leaving Christine to parent alone while trying to keep up the illusion of the perfect plural family that TLC viewers later realized was held together by little more than stress, denial, and Robin's growing influence in the household. And the irony is almost painful at this point because while Kody claims Christine should be forgotten, an attitude that has infuriated fans who watched her struggle quietly while raising their 6 children, he is quite literally unable to let go, constantly referring to her in conversations, blaming her for the family fallout, avoiding responsibility for pushing her to her breaking point, and complaining relentlessly about the adult kids he rarely spent quality time with in the final years of their marriage, as if their frustration and distance magically materialized out of nowhere rather than developing from the same neglect that pushed Christine to make her historic exit from the plural marriage in 2021. A departure that not only changed her life for the better but also became the catalyst for Janelle's awakening and Mary's eventual acceptance that the family she once saw as eternal had drifted into a hierarchy where Kody's favoritism toward Robin overshadowed every other connection. And if viewers thought Kody's anger would fade over time, they were wrong, because insiders claim he's become increasingly obsessed with defending his own narrative, painting himself as the misunderstood father whose children have been poisoned by their mothers, especially Christine, whom he claims twisted the knife by encouraging independence and honesty around the kids, fostering a culture where they were finally allowed to speak freely about their hurt, their confusion, and their experience living under a system where some kids felt like second-class members while others enjoyed emotional closeness, financial stability, and the daily presence of a father who lived full-time with one wife while leaving the rest to deal with sparse check-ins, broken promises, and constant rescheduling. And the more Kody tries to rewrite history, insisting he poured his heart equally into all of his relationships and all of his children, the more obvious it becomes that the true issue eating at him is the simple fact that Christine walked away first, not because she wanted revenge or to embarrass him publicly, but because she couldn't carry the emotional weight of being the obedient plural wife any longer. And every time Kody brings up her kids, whether he's complaining about their refusal to engage with him, accusing them of disrespect, or ranting that they've taken their mother's side, what he's really expressing is the unresolved reality that Christine and her children saw through the facade long before the public did, recognizing the favoritism and emotional imbalance that eventually destroyed the entire plural structure he once thought unshakable. And Robin, caught in the middle but also undeniably the gravitational center around which Kody now orbits, has grown increasingly worried about the fact that he simply cannot let the topic go, allegedly telling close friends that she wishes he would stop dwelling on Christine and her children because every time he spirals, their own household tension skyrockets, creating arguments, late-night discussions, and endless processing sessions, in which Kody circles back to the same complaints. Christine disrespected him. Her kids turned on him. He gave everything he had, and no one appreciated the sacrifices he made, while ignoring the clear reality that his emotional withdrawal from the original wives long predated Christine's exit, a truth that only becomes more glaring as he tries harder to deny it. Meanwhile, Christine, living her best life with David Woolley and enjoying newfound freedom, confidence, and joy, has remained largely unbothered by Kody's ongoing fixation, choosing instead to focus on family, travel, new adventures, and a version of motherhood no longer weighed down by the emotional exhaustion of trying to earn her husband's love and her kids, who now feel seen, heard, supported, and valued, have continued speaking openly about their experiences, not out of spite but out of a desire to be honest about the reality of growing up in a home where emotional availability was inconsistent at best and conditional at worst, a perspective that has only intensified Kody's resentment as he tries to convince himself that if Christine had only been more compliant, more quiet, more accommodating, he wouldn't be dealing with so much backlash from their adult children today. But the stark truth is that Kody, forgetting Christine, is impossible because she represents not only his past but the collapse of the narrative he tried so desperately to maintain, and every complaint he makes about her children is simply another sign that he is wrestling with the consequences of his own behavior, unable to accept that these kids aren't rebelling out of manipulation. They're speaking from lived experience, the kind of raw, unfiltered truth that Kody spent decades trying to smooth over for cameras, for fans, and for his own sense of control. And in the end, the scandal isn't just that Kody wants to erase Christine while complaining about her kids. It's that he still doesn't understand that the fallout isn't the result of Christine's decision to leave, but the years of emotional distance, patterns of favoritism, and quiet neglect that led her to that decision in the first place. And no matter how loudly he tries to rewrite history, the reality remains. Christine set herself free. Her kids finally feel heard. And the more Kody talks about wanting to forget her, the more he reveals he can't, because she was the turning point that forced the entire world to see exactly what was happening behind the scenes of the Brown family long before it all fell apart on television. And even as Kody Brown tries to project confidence, stability, and some strange sense of moral superiority in the aftermath of Christine's departure, the tension between what he says and what he actually feels becomes more glaring every time he opens his mouth, because while he insists he wants to forget Christine entirely, as if she were just an inconvenient subplot rather than the woman who spent more than 25 years building his household, raising his children, and holding together a crumbling plural structure, his obsession with criticizing her kids exposes a truth he doesn't want fans to see. He is still deeply wounded by the fact that Christine was the first one to stop tolerating his behavior, and her children, through no fault of their own, now represent the collapse of the control he once exercised over the family dynamic. A control he thought would last forever simply because he believed obedience and loyalty were owed to him, regardless of how present or absent he was in their daily lives. And as he continues to spiral, bringing up Christine's kids in conversations that have nothing to do with them, Robin is said to be growing more and more frustrated with his inability to move on, allegedly telling close confidants that living with Kody these days is like living with a storm that never stops circling the same mountain, because every discussion, no matter how neutral, somehow ends with him venting about the adult children who don't respect him anymore, a phrase that ignores the uncomfortable truth that respect cannot be demanded retroactively when emotional presence was not consistently given in the first place, especially after the pandemic era, when the divide between Kody's household with Robin and the rest of the family became painfully visible to the wives and kids who were left feeling like afterthoughts. And in Christine's world, where love, joy, and independence now define her daily life, the contrast has become almost poetic because the woman who once cried in confessionals, begging for even a sliver of acknowledgement from a husband who had emotionally checked out, now radiates confidence and peace, while Kody, who once boasted about being the leader of an enormous plural family, finds himself alone with the wife he always favored, yet unable to escape the memories of the ones who finally broke free, especially Christine's children, who now live with a sense of liberation they never imagined possible during the darkest years of the family's unraveling. And one of the most ironic twists in this entire saga is that Christine's kids aren't attacking Kody out of spite. They're simply telling the truth, sharing the reality of their upbringing with a clarity that makes Kody uncomfortable because it contradicts the carefully curated version of the Brown family he portrayed on television for more than a decade, a version in which he was the devoted, involved father who held the entire plural unit together through faith, effort, and sacrifice, a narrative that falls apart the moment the adult children reveal the inconsistencies, broken promises, and painful favoritism that shaped their experience, especially in the final years when Kody became almost exclusively emotionally and physically invested in Robyn's household, and as Christine continues to build her new life, celebrating holidays with joy instead of tension, taking trips with her daughters, planning adventures with David, and embracing the freedom to finally live in a relationship where she is chosen every single day. Kody remains tethered to the past, unable to stop rehashing the grievances he believes define his entire break with Christine, repeating the same complaints to the point where even those closest to him are reportedly exhausted by the constant cycle of blame, frustration, and denial, all while Christine appears on social media smiling, cooking, dancing, and thriving, which only triggers him further because, deep down, he never expected her to rise so quickly, so boldly, and with so much happiness in her eyes. And the more he tries to forget her, the more her success haunts him, not because he wants her back, but because her thriving reminds him of the emotional failure he refuses to own, a failure Christine saw clearly long before she left, a failure their children understand all too well, and a failure that continues to echo every time Kody tries to shift responsibility onto anyone but himself. And this is why his obsession with Christine's kids is so revealing, because each complaint is less about what they did and more about what their honesty forces him to confront. Years of neglect, misplaced priorities, emotional distance, and the undeniable fact that Christine did not leave on a whim or out of manipulation but out of necessity. Out of the deep-rooted understanding that staying in a marriage where her love was neither reciprocated nor valued was slowly destroying her spirit, something the children witnessed long before viewers did, making their loyalty to their mother both natural and inevitable. And so, even as Kody rants about forgetting Christine, even as he paints her kids as troublemakers or rebels, the truth remains painfully clear. He cannot forget her because she represents a turning point he never saw coming. And he cannot stop complaining about her children because they are the living reminder of a story he has spent years trying to rewrite. A story where he wasn't the husband who chose favorites, the father who drifted away, or the man who broke the hearts of an entire branch of his family tree, but rather a misunderstood patriarch whose family inexplicably turned on him. Yet no matter how hard he tries to push that narrative, Christine's happiness, her children's voices, and the public's awareness of the truth stand as constant proof that the real story cannot be erased, no matter how badly he wants to forget.